Welcome to the Hollywood in Toto podcast, the right take on entertainment. The HiT cast offers a weekly look at Hollywood from a conservative point of view. Sick of media bias infecting Hollywood headlines? Tired of stars insulting your views? HiT has your back. Now, here's your host, Christian Toto.
Welcome to episode 5 of the Hollywood in Toto podcast. If this is your first time listening, well, thanks for checking us out. The HiTcast airs every Friday with engaging interviews, the latest headlines, and recommendations to make the most of your leisure time. As always, you can find the show notes at hollywoodintoto.com. This week we're talking to actor-turned-director Joseph Granda. He spent his 20s in Hollywood, but found the industry didn't exactly nourish his soul. Now he's creating a gritty, faith-based movie on his own terms. But before I chat, let's talk about a welcome change in Hollywood. I've been covering the celebrity meltdowns related to Trump's win for some time now. How could I resist? There's something else going on, though. Some TV executives are wondering about their business model in the wake of Trump's election. Are they truly representing the country with their content? Here's an ABC executive weighing in to The Hollywood Reporter. In years past, it would be very easy to let one side feel like the cartoon and have this show assume that the audience is siding with the other. Wow, I didn't see that coming. Now, not everyone is on board with this potential shift. Prolific producer Ryan Murphy of Glee fame says he's going to stay the course and keep pushing his progressive talking points into storytelling. Well, we'll have to wait and see if all this talk really produces some action. Now, a lot of the shows that we see on TV and the ones coming up soon, they're already locked in, so I don't think you're going to see many changes afoot in that particular lineup. But, maybe starting in the early fall, late 2017, maybe some of this Trump America stuff will actually filter into the programming. And that's a good thing. Not so much for Trump by any stretch, but hey, there's a whole country out there that often gets neglected. We're talking about the whole flyover states, the red states. It's not just New York and LA. And it's about time that Hollywood realized that. So we'll see what happens going forward, but we'll be checking it out. Now, before we get to the interview, I wanted to give a quick tip about a movie that came out earlier this year. It was a flop. There's no way of getting around that. But Ben-Hur is now on home video. And if you haven't seen it yet, you might want to give it a try. Now, of course, it's not nearly as good as the classic movie with Charlton Heston, which in itself was a remake, by the way. But this one has a really solid chariot race that, if not the equal to the Heston version, it's darn good all the same. But it's not just a good story for that reason. There are compelling characters here. There's a sense of forgiveness, which I think is beautifully woven into the story. And for people of faith, there are some religious overtones here, which I think are handled with just the right delicate touch. I don't think it's overwhelming, but it's certainly there to be seen and to be appreciated. So from all those reasons, I think Ben-Hur would be a good choice for the weekend's viewing. Now, again, just ratchet your expectations down. Just know it can't touch that classic film, but it's good in its own right, and that's often good enough. Now on to this week's interview with actor-turned-director Joseph Granda. You may have seen him in the smart indie film Amongst Friends. These days, he calls Colorado, not LA, home, but he hasn't given up on movies entirely. In fact, he just started production on a new film that doesn't exactly fit the faith movie mold. Hope you enjoy my interview with Joseph Granda.
I want to start with Hollywood. I know in the early 90s you were a working actor, and you got some kind of interesting roles, and obviously it's a brutally tough business, and you were kind of thriving for a while. So talk about those early years and what sort of jumps out at you about that period in your lives.
Well, I started out, I studied with, William Alderson, Sanford Meisner in New York, and I went on to do the normal things an actor does, work in restaurants and off Broadway, and then ended up on Broadway. And then I got a starring role in a little independent film called Amongst Friends that was written and directed by Rob Weiss, who went on to help produce, create, and write Entourage and Made in America. And from there, that sort of led me into, it was a hit at Sundance and other film festivals. It was actually the last time, 1994, I think it was, at Sundance, the festival really had a sense of independence to it. It's just not that anymore. And then I went to Hollywood. I started working. I did lots of TV and small parts in big movies and other things. And it's a difficult place to live and reside for a lot of different reasons.
What was like the biggest difference between what you hoped and expected and what you found?
Well, what I hoped was that living in New York, I was always considered sort of an artsy-fartsy artist sort of type. And what I didn't understand at an early age is that the art is all secondary to the business, and I had no business sense, which is why I always tell young actors now today that if you're going to be an actor, you need to learn about business. because that was before the craft, and you could see that, in some of the actors who are famous and popular, they're not particularly great actors, but there's something about them that puts them into the business mode.
Gotcha. And we've talked in the past about some of your sort of more colorful anecdotes about meeting stars and sort of your moments behind the scenes. Is there one or two sort of moments you can share right now? Things that kind of, even though you're not in Hollywood anymore, you'll still look back on them fondly, or at least with a big smile on your face?
Most of those I wouldn't put out into the public domain to be heard. I'll tell you this, though. When you meet really big movie stars, the majority of them will talk to you and respect you if you just treat them and speak to them like they're normal people, because they really are kind of freaks in the world. Because people see them and they associate them not with who they are as people, but with who you know them as in characters. And I've met lots of famous people. I've met Marlon Brando. I've met I've read for Kevin Costner in the past, and Kevin Costner was just the most normal guy in the world. I got to read for Clint Eastwood, although Clint Eastwood, I don't know how he is now, but at the time, he didn't see actors face to face because I was told that it was too painful for him, somebody who has been an actor, to have to say no or thank you for coming and excuse people. And I understand that. When I read for him, it was on video, so I never actually got to meet him.
Yeah, interesting though that at least he had that sort of empathy still, even though he was a screen legend at that point.
Yeah, I mean, but what led me out of Hollywood was, and it's really changed a lot since. For one thing, there's more work for actors now because of the different mediums where you can watch shows. But you really are just this sort of thing that the director in TV, they tell you, they don't tell this to the actor, but they say make sure they hit their marks and that they speak fast to sort of get it over with. But I got to the point where I was working, and I always kept myself busy. I learned I continued to work in production because there was so much free time in between work as an actor, and you usually end up getting in trouble. But what led me out of acting in Hollywood was not only one, just maturing, and was I got an offer to play the part of a rapist in a film, a campus rapist that was based on a true story, whatever that means anymore. But I went to my agent and I said, I don't want to do this. And because when you do a film like that, then you walk around town the next day in Hollywood and people point at you as the guy who was raping girls. And then your mother sees it, because your mother's not going to not watch something that you're in, and your family and stuff. And I just remember my agent saying, but this would be really good for your career. And I had this moment where I thought, what is my career that raping women on film is good for? And they actually dropped me because I wasn't sort of a team player. Now, that's also because I wasn't somebody that was making them a lot of money. And I went and got another agent. I did a little bit more work, but ultimately I just packed up and I left. It just wasn't for me. There's only two things that I regret in my life, although I don't regret now because I have a great life. But if I had done it over, I probably would have stayed in New York and continued on a path of being a theater actor and seeing what would have happened to my career there, rather than jump on the train of immediately moving to Hollywood after I had some success in an independent film at Sundance.
Besides the work itself, what was different about the New York and LA experience?
The community of actors. I think in New York, there was sort of a real sort of romanticism about being an actor there, and people didn't look down on you in New York for being an actor. I think that people that are serious about being an actor should start out in the theater and go to New York or Chicago or someplace like that.
We often hear a lot of bad things about Hollywood, and you kind of talked about sort of it's show business, that the arts often takes second place, but I like to share stories about good things that happen in Hollywood, because I think we hear all the bad. And I've interviewed people who talked about Kevin Costner, frankly, and said what a nice guy he is. Is there anything you can share about even a small moment where you thought, what, I know the industry gets a bad rap, and maybe there are some bad eggs around here, but there also are some decent people, and that sort of doesn't get enough attention in a way.
Well, and Kevin Costner was very when I met him, was very, very nice. I like people like that who just seem like a regular guy.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, the only person that comes to mind is my late friend Phil Hoffman. Phil and I were sitting around. We were in I think I was living with him briefly in the Hollywood Hills as I was looking for my own place, and we were at a sushi bar. And we were at this point in our careers where he was really taking off. And mind you, I had no talent that was even close to what Phil had. And I said, I don't understand. We were at the same agency at the time. I said, we're at the same agency, and you seem to be really taking off. And sometimes we even read for the same roles. We read for the same role in The Big Lebowski.
Huh. Uh-huh.
And I think it might have been after that. I'm not sure, but I said, I just don't know what it is. And he was really honest with me, and he said, well, you're a moderately handsome-looking guy with brown hair and brown eyes, and there's 120,000 of you out here. I'm a fat, red-headed guy, and only one of me. And and he was right. He was being modest because it was more than just he was a fat, red-headed guy, And Phil, I don't know what happened to Phil. I mean, I know what happened to Phil. I love Phil, but that town will take the sweetness out of you and just make it really bitter.
Yeah.
But he was a great guy. I will always remember him as the guy sitting on the couch as we watched the Super Bowl, eating buffalo wings from Pizza Hut and wiping his hands on his white T-shirt as he watched the game. It's just, I'll never forget that.
No.
I called him after he won his Oscar, and I never got a hold of him, but I left a message that I don't care how many awards you get, you'll always be the guy wiping buffalo wings off of your shirt.
He probably appreciated that. Now, obviously, you did leave Hollywood, and you resettled in Colorado. And some time passed, and you weren't acting, weren't seeking roles. And in recent years, you've kind of had a bit of an itch to kind of go back in that direction. Talk about that, and then we'll kind of get into your new project.
Well, I had a religious conversion, is what happened. I came out here, I owned a restaurant, and I wrote a novel. I wrote some more screenplays. I had some notice for that. And, I had a child, which changes you, as you know. And there was a church in our neighborhood, a big church, and we thought, well, let's go check it out. And I just heard the gospel in a way that was never told to me before. And my partners at the time were doing things that I ethically didn't agree with. And so it's a long story, but I had to sue them and get my money back in a business venture and whatnot. And I instantly found myself as a stay-at-home dad, which I hate that term because it just sounds like you're at home watching Oprah all day. But to be a good parent is a lot of work. You have to be present. And I just sort of, frankly, I just prayed. I said, hey, you know what, big guy, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'll do it. I'll open up a Donuts for Jesus shop in this town if you want. And it just started coming to me, and I started writing again, and I wrote a screenplay that, was a semifinalist in the Kairos Prize, which is the largest sort of faith-based screenplay contest in the country. And then I wrote another one, and then I thought, you know what? I'm not going to play this game. I'm going to make my own film. I think that's what I'm being called to do. Mm-hmm. Which is what brought me to where I am now with The Wilderness Pilot. I got a great producer who's produced a couple feature films out here in Colorado, and we're now just deciding. We've got a time schedule and a budget, and now we're just going forward from there.
Gotcha. If this had happened to you younger, I don't think sort of the resources and technology would be on your side, but I imagine that you can make a pretty good-looking film today on a pretty modest budget. Is that part of the impetus? The fact that it's you can do a bootstrap film and make something pretty darn good.
Absolutely. And I sat down and I wrote this screenplay with that in mind. I watched films like All Is Lost, mm-hmm. which I liked that film, which is a boat. It's still a $10 million movie, but it's a boat and a guy. And I thought, what story can I tell with a guy? Mm-hmm. There's actually 4 characters in the film, but it's all set out in the wilderness. There's no interior.